Danan Hughes, part of the Chiefs radio network. He'll be bundling up, I think, for the cold weather and maybe snow out in Denver. Danan, what's going on, man? Is it hard for you even not to look ahead to Germany? And how is that for players?
I'd say it's a little bit tough, but probably tougher for players. But I don't think it's as tough, guys, as looking forward to the bye week. I think when you're a player, like the first thing you look at when the schedule comes out in May, and I remember like vividly looking down and saying, oh, the schedule came out, looking at it, okay, how many Monday night games we got? If we're going back to the East Coast, how many Sunday night or Thursday night games, and then when is the bye? Like it's kind of in that order. So as far as going to Germany, I know everybody in the Chiefs organization is excited, justifiably so, but I feel like with Andy Reid and the way this team is led, they're not looking past the Denver Broncos at all. And it's going to be cold weather in Germany, too, so this will give us a preview of it in Denver. So it's all good.
Danan, do you think that there's a certain amount, like from a player pride perspective, Patrick Mahomes can beat the Denver Broncos for the 13th consecutive time, which would be an NFL record to start a career in beating a team consecutively? Do you at some point take as much pride in the streak staying alive as the team on the other side is trying desperately to end it, if that makes sense, right? The Broncos and the Broncos fans are going to be desperate to make this thing stop.
I think it may be even, and here's why. Yes, there's an extreme desperation for the Broncos and incentive for the Broncos to end this streak. Not just because it's a streak, but because they recognize like their losing season, their season is going down the tubes right now. And having said that, like they get relief for 3 of their losses automatically by beating the Chiefs. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like one of those deals where like they feel bad in Denver and all the Broncos fans feel real bad that they are where they are right now. But they beat the Chiefs. It's almost like they won 4 of their last 6 losses or whatever. So, I mean, like that's kind of where I see it for them. For us, it's just another game, another opportunity to continue dominance over the AFC West, another opportunity to stretch this lead at first place. And that's, I think the Chiefs go into the game. I don't think they think about anything else. Now, having said that, to be able to tie the second most dominance in division wins in the NFL history with 17. I believe Brady has 20?
20 is back in the Bills in the 80s. Brady is right around that range where Patrick Mahomes is now.
Yeah, I think if we would tie Brady and those guys for 17, and then previously there was 20. So, like, you're getting in rare air right now, and I think players would love to be a part of that. To be able to say when they come back, like last week, we put Dante Hall in the Ring of Honor, and they had the highlight tape that showed, and several of them were against the Denver Broncos. And you got Jamal Charles and Derek Johnson and a lot of those guys, Tom Ali, back in town. And they can say that they were part of some of this dominance as well. So I feel like some of this stuff these guys won't really be able to digest until after their careers. But to have that dominance over the team, the Donkeys, you know, I think that's special.
Playing a team in your division as well so quickly, right? And they're playing twice in a 3-week span here, and we know it was a 19-8 win the last go-around. Is that more challenging to play a team so quickly, or is that actually better to play a team that you're familiar with in this short amount of span?
I think it can be better. I think especially if you won the game, you recognize, one, that the Chiefs were the better football team. They didn't play great football that day. They still won 19 by multiple scores. So there's good in that. But I think the challenge is for the Broncos because they have to think, was our game plan really good enough to replicate? Or do we have to revamp that entire game plan 2 weeks later to play against this same team? That's where, like, I don't know if I would call it a chess match, but that's where kind of the dominoes fall when you're talking about Sean Payton and the preparation for the Chiefs. Like, they have to feel pretty darn good about their game plan, the fact that they held us to 19 points and Patrick Mahomes didn't really have a great day. Like they have to feel that way. So are they going to repeat some of that? Or are they going to say, you know what, there's some other things we could do, roll the dice, and risk losing 31-8 this time? I mean, like
Sure.
It's kind of one of those deals that I think it makes it dynamic, a interesting dynamic for the opposing team that lost that first matchup.
Danny, we're talking about our confidence in the wide receivers, and I was pointing out that not a single wide receiver has a 100-yard game yet this year. Gold and I both think Rashee Rice will have one at some point. Are you already at the point with him that you can just count on him literally week in and week out? Gold seems like he's good to go. He's ready. He's like, I trust him the second most behind Kelsey. Are you there with Rice yet?
Absolutely. I feel like the game has slowed down, and he's speeding up in the game. I don't want to compare him to some of the rookie greats that we've seen burst upon the scene in this league over the course of history, but there's something about his gear, something about his strength that is different. I think it's kind of the production that we thought Sky Moore would have this year, but his ability to get north-south as quickly as he does after catching the ball is extremely unique. Tyreek Hill did it. There are other greats in history that did it, that made the game look slow as rookies. And I feel like he's kind of emerging in that. The biggest knock we had was him. It wasn't about him getting open. It wasn't about him creating separation. It was about him catching the ball.
Yeah.
And now he's catching the ball. So the fact that he's able to do with the ball what he's able to do is extremely impressive. And I feel like this is just the beginning. I mean, Patrick is only going to gain more and more confidence with him on the field.
Last week, Danan asked you about Frank Clark, and you weren't totally maybe sold on his fit coming back, and now it turns out there's an injury in Seattle, and so maybe a better opportunity existed for Frank Clark as he's signing with the Seahawks. But Charles Omenihu, in his spot that he was able to come back to after the suspension, I mean, that looked like the guy that was their second biggest signing of the offseason. That was impressive to come in immediately and have that impact.
Absolutely. I felt like we were going to see that. If you would have asked me before the game what I thought he would make some noise for sure. Now, did I think he would make that much noise? Wasn't 100% sure. It was different than when Chris Jones held out that first game. You kind of knew when he came back, as long as he wasn't on a pitch count, he was going to do some damage. But, like, sitting 6 games, having to watch a team flourish on defense, like just the fact that, like, some people might think, okay, well, if the defense was playing bad and Charles comes back, he's going to elevate. But there's also a dynamic in when you watch the unit that you're working with flourish to the extent that they were, you get more, like, incentive to join the party. You just don't want to be one of the visitors. Like, you want to be a part of the whole full course in the party. And I felt like that was just him chomping at the bit, waiting for an opportunity to get on the field so he can show that he's not just going to be one of the guys that we're going to bring along. Like, he's going to be able to make some noise and join the party like everybody else. So I loved it. I thought the versatility that we saw with him lining up inside, outside, to think about this defense with Furious George, Mike Dana in the middle, Omenihu in the middle, move Chris Jones outside, bring in Felix, rotate up, Willie Gay Jr., who makes some noise in the pressure game. You also got Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed. All of these guys not only know how to make plays, and there's a difference between making tackles and making plays. These guys all are playmakers that know how to take up real estate in opponent's backfield, making those plays. That's the difference that I see, and he's a well-added, he's a huge addition for this defense.
Danan, how much will we notice the subtraction on the defense that's Nick Bolton? We don't know how long the surgery would keep him out. Obviously, Drew Tranquill ends up being a very important signing now, but how much on field will we notice that Nick Bolton isn't there?
I think it's going to show itself mostly in the run game. And I think Drew Tranquill, we've seen a couple of times him covering the tight end up the middle, up the seam, dislodging the ball or being in a great position for a difficult throw. That's what he brings to the table. that coverage ability, the sideline-to-sideline speed, but the run-stopping ability of Nick Bolton is what is going to be missed on this defense. Now, I do feel like this unit has the capabilities of filling that gap, but to the extent of the playmaking ability, again, we might look back at the stats this week or for the next several weeks while Nick Bolton is out and see Drew Tranquill leading the team in tackles. That's great. I never pay attention to who leads in tackles and those kind of stats because you can make a tackle 6 yards down the field while Nick Bolton could have made it 2 yards. So that's the part of the game that I'm going to watch is to see how effective he can be in run stopping downhill as opposed to just making tackles.
Last one for you. Looking at the Broncos, I know they just played them so recently, but that Broncos defense last week against Green Bay did look better. Was that more about what Jordan Love and the Packers weren't able to do, or do you think the Broncos are slightly better than what they were a couple weeks ago?
I think you have to be a team. You have to feel like they can be better, or they were better. But I don't discount the fact that the Packers. I don't believe they had Aaron Jones in that game. I don't feel like they have clicked on all cylinders with their offense. Christian Watson, didn't play full or has been hampered. So you didn't get the full effect of the Packers. But with that said, we also saw last year this Denver Broncos team fight us to the end. We saw them this year in this game fight us for most of the game and making some key mistakes that cost them the game. So, the defense, I think they're going to be solid. They're going to be without Kareem Jackson. That's going to be a big blow for them. They're probably going to be able to, I guess the other benefit of playing us so quickly is that you have seen the film recently. And as a player in that locker room, when you go back on Monday and you watch the film of the previous game, that stuff is fresh in your mind. And you recognize, oh man, he played me this kind of technique. Trent, if I had to play him again this week, this is what I would do. And these are the adjustments I would make. Well, now you're just playing them 2 weeks later. So that stuff that was fresh in your mind about how you would attack this team is going to sit there, and you have that opportunity to change things. So I feel like this is going to be one of the harder fought games that we'll have this season and maybe even against the Broncos in recent years.
All right, Danan, appreciate the insight as always, man. Safe travels out to Denver, and then we'll check in next week before you head over to Frankfurt, Germany.
All right, fellas.